Minecraft has a ton of different ways to travel, from boats to TNT launchers. In this video I'll show you the 20 quickest ones, and they get faster and faster as we go along, so be sure to watch to the end and find out the fastest way to travel in Minecraft. There are obviously way more than 20 ways to travel in Minecraft, since transportation is definitely one of the most important parts of the game. So here are the 20 quickest, and let's start with minecarts. The maximum speed you can reach in a well-powered minecart track is 8 blocks a second. Now inside of Minecraft, every block is a meter by a meter, so although I am going to call this in terms of blocks a second, you could also think about this in terms of meters a second or even kilometers a second, depending on where you live. But either way, the minecart starts us off with 8 blocks a second in terms of its transportation distance. Next off, we have riding in a boat, and this could be any type of boat or even a chest boat, a raft, whatever you want, as of course Minecraft does have a lot of variants. Now the speed of traveling in a boat in the water, if you're going at full speed, and there's not really a lot you can do to affect this actually, there is more or less just full boating speed. Well, you might be surprised to know that the speed of boats is 8 blocks a second, or the exact same speed as minecarts. This is something good to remember because if your Minecraft world has a ton of oceans or a ton of rivers, especially near a base that might be useful for travel, that is actually as efficient and as useful to the player as having an entire minecart track along the length of that river or that ocean. Because of this, you can use boats to make some really easy transportation corridors, but again, they can never go faster than 8 blocks a second if you have a standard boat traveling through standard water. Now the next fastest thing in Minecraft also involves the water, and you have to dive headfirst into the ocean to enjoy the Dolphins Grace swimming effect. Now with Dolphins Grace, if you're swimming around in the ocean or in the river, you're going to go at 8 blocks a second with your swimming speed. The standard swimming speed isn't fast enough to even make it on this list, so this is a considerable upgrade. One thing to remember though is this is the speed without any other enchantments or effects added. There are other ways to make Dolphins Grace even faster than 8 blocks a second, so although this effect is really fun, it's good to remember that it's the exact same speed as boating, so realistically there's no practical reason to use standard Dolphins Grace swimming until you have some more enchantments. Let's move on to the next speed though, which is quite a bit faster than Dolphins Grace. To get this next speed, throw on a gold helmet and put down some gold ingots. After bartering with these gold ingots for a while, you're eventually going to get back a book, as you can see right here. And there's 3 types we want the best. They are soul speed. So once you get soul speed 3, you want to put that on a really good pair of boots, as this enchantment can wear down the durability of the boots that it's on. Once we have this, throw it on and let's find a soul sand valley. And that's because, as the name suggests, soul speed 3 makes you go much quicker in soul sand. Now what is the speed? With full soul speed 3, we can actually go at 1.6 times the normal speed of running. At soul speed 3, we're going at 9.06 blocks a second. The one thing is, to make this method practical across more than just one biome, you need to harvest a large amount of soul sand or soul soil, then make some highways across the overworld or even the nether with that. This is going to be giving us the next fastest way of traveling. Start by placing a bucket of water at the top of this. Then travel down to the bottom and place kelp from that very bottom block. This is going to replace that flowing water with water source blocks. Break that bottom piece of kelp and break that bottom dirt block, replace it with that soul sand. Now this method of transportation, which is very easy to set up, is a vertical transportation of water elevators. And the speed that this makes the player travel at is 11 blocks a second. So if you're in a full speed soul sand bubble elevator, you can go quite a bit quicker vertically than you could with most other methods. The only unfortunate thing is there is no horizontal bubble elevator. So anyway, the speed of a bubble elevator beats out soul sand at 11 blocks a second. But let's move on to the next method, which can actually, depending, be a little bit slower than this method or quite a bit faster. I am of course talking about the rideable mob, the horse. However, as you can see right here, some horses are very slow. That's because the speed of horses are variable, so the average horse is 9.5 blocks a second, which is definitely faster than soul speed, but is also slower than a bubble elevator. However, with the fastest horse, you can actually go at a full 14.23 blocks a second. If we get on this horse of the same color and tame it as well and ride it around, you'll notice that it has a bit of a different speed than the other horse. So if you were trying to get yourself the fastest horse and breed the quickest with the quickest, you could eventually have a transportation method that can make you go about 14 blocks a second. But unfortunately for the horse here, that is still nowhere near the quickest way of traveling in Minecraft, so let's go on to the next method, which is actually really easy. In fact, all you need for it is a single item. And no, that item is not the llamas up here on the mountain, it's actually ender pearls. But to make this safe, I'm going to get on some boots that have feather falling 4, as ender pearls can damage you. So if you throw an ender pearl at 15 degrees, and you can actually see degrees on your F3 screen right there in the center right next to my XYZ axis there, the speed that we're going to travel at, if you consider from the time we clicked to when we teleport, is 23 blocks a second. And that's even almost double what a good horse would be. And so maybe if you started out in a server or something, where there's already lots of cheap and easy to get ender pearls, but you don't have Elytra yet, you could use those in combination with feather falling to actually make a very quick way of traveling across the Minecraft world. Unlike a lot of these methods, if you want to climb up a mountain, the ender pearl's right there for that as well, giving you a really easy way of summiting these distances and having specific locations that you teleport to. Now for this method, we're going to need to find a trident, which can definitely be easier said than done. But once you have found one, take that trident and enchant it with Riptide 3. Now you can also get this in the enchanting table really easily. The Riptide Trident gives you a transportation ability, and this ability is overpowered because the speed that you're traveling right now with the trident is 32 blocks a second. That's right, half a stack of speed, which I think is pretty good. And you can see going around here with this, we can just go at incredible speed. Things do change a little bit depending on where you're flying, what angle you're going, etc. But ideally, just traveling like this through the water, we can already go at 32 blocks a second. So if you can get yourself a Riptide Trident, this is absolutely one of the quickest and best ways of traveling in Minecraft. But for now, let's move on to the next method of travel, which makes the player be able to fly even more than they can with the Trident. Now this method is not news to any player, as of course the Elytra is absolutely the quickest way that people often travel in the game. And although it's not actually the fastest method of travel, it is probably the one that you have the most control over at that speed. As with Elytra, you can go down, upwards, left or right, even go around objects, do really whatever you want with this item, and you can navigate all of that in a way that's actually possible. So what actually is this speed? Well, if we're going straight vertical like this, we go at about 30 blocks a second. That actually means that it is at the very slowest, slightly slower than the Riptide Trident in water. However, if we go at an angle at all, we can make that speed a lot faster. In fact, the Elytra item at its very fastest can go at a stunning 78.4 blocks a second. However, let's move on to a method that in terms of vertical straight line transportation does actually slightly beat out the Elytra. To achieve this speed, we're already sort of having to combine methods, since this uses both ice and boats. Now you're going to go the exact same speed if you're doing this on packed ice or if you're doing this on the standard ice. So what is the speed that we travel? Well, you can see that by going along here, we really do reach a very fast speed. That is going at a consistent 40 blocks a second. And the same is exactly true for that packed ice. If we go along here, we're going at about 40 blocks a second. So if you start laying out large packed ice or standard ice tunnels around your world or even in other places, you can get a really consistent way of going quite quick. In fact, frozen oceans are a great example of how fast you can go on ice, even frozen rivers. You can use these as pre-made pathways. This still does provide us a really fun and quick way of traveling, but not the fastest. We can go so much quicker than 40 blocks a second. Let's zoom on to the next one. Walking around underwater in Minecraft is really slow, but we can make this much faster by enchanting our netherite boots with Depth Strider 3. This is a nether boot related enchantment which will make us go a lot faster. And just walking around in the water with Depth Strider 3, this just makes us go back to our normal speeds, so it's nothing too crazy. But if we combine this with the power of Dolphins Grace, those two speed effects together are going to make something amazing happen, and you can actually see this right now. We are swimming at incredibly fast speeds, at about 48 blocks a second. Now 48 blocks a second is much quicker than you could generally go even with Elytra at consistent speeds, so having a way to swim with dolphins regularly in your Minecraft world with that Depth Strider 3 enchantment is also another fairly easy, fairly early game available way of making a very quick transportation method. You can also show how fast this is just by walking on the ground, and you can see just for a second there, we walked so quickly. This next method method is going to be our first demonstration of the incredible power of using nether portals. You see, if you travel through the nether, every block you travel is the equivalent to 8 blocks in the overworld. This property that the nether has of multiplying our transportation speed by 8 times is actually so overpowered that combining it with even some of the slowest methods can give us incredible results. So if we travel in this minecart track, which gives us about 8 blocks a second through the nether, which is multiplying that by 8 blocks a second as well, we get 64 blocks a second being traveled, once of course you've exited through the second nether portal. Now though this method does rely upon the nether, and you might be thinking that a minecart track through the nether is pointless, something this can be very useful for is really quick travel times between short distances. We can use these multiplications, and of course the automatic features of the minecart, to have a much more useful track through our world, again traveling at 64 blocks a second. Here we are back to the overworld. We need to use the very rare and valuable blue ice for this method, and so the best way of getting this is traveling to icebergs and harvesting it. Blue ice lets the player travel at 72.73 blocks a second. Let's see what this looks like. It is very fast. In fact, it takes a bit of time to get all the way up to full speed, but this 300 block long blue ice path has just passed in a second. So blue ice gives us almost double the speed of standard or packed ice. Now obviously this makes it the best method for a late game Minecraft world where you can use that. In Java we can have 4 times less blue ice by laying it out in a pattern like this. In Bedrock, a straight line of blue ice with enough siding so that you don't fall off is another more efficient way of having a blue ice tunnel that gives you that 72.73 blocks a second. This method combines 2 of the quickest methods we have so far already. We're going to use a Riptide Trident with Elytra. So what basically is going to happen is if you use the Elytra in the air, you can go super fast. Now obviously we're in the air right now and we can't use this, so we have to wait until it's raining. Now rain gives us the ability to use our Riptide Trident anywhere, as long as it's not a desert where rain is forced to not fall. And what can basically happen here is we can get into an absolutely exponential pattern of speed, with it going all the way up to 125 blocks a second. This is truly a speed that Minecraft can't even really handle the player traveling at, using a Riptide Trident in the air. So next time you're trying to fly a very long distance with your Elytra, maybe ditch the rockets, use a Riptide Trident, and unlock a 4 times faster speed. Riptide Elytra flying is super powerful, so to make something even better, we have to combine all the methods we have. Let's take boots and add Depth Strider 3. Let's also add Soul Speed 3 to those boots, and let's drink a Potion of Speed 2. Once we've done that, we're going to put on these boots and start swimming. If we go on a tunnel of soul sand with that, we're going super fast. In fact, one of the quickest speeds you can go on the overworld that's even able to be experienced by the player and loaded in. It's because with all these methods combined, the speed we're traveling at is 144 blocks a second. This is much quicker than any other method we've used so far, and it is just so fast and so fun. And I think that setting these up in your Minecraft world is absolutely worthwhile if you want to have literally the quickest and most fun way of traveling be there. Believe it or not, there's even faster ways in this insane hyperspeed, and let's move on to that. And that is Elytra plus the nether dimension. If you're in a nice open part of the nether, you can actually fly around here fairly easily, and with that you can go at the insanely fast speed of 240 blocks a second, letting you go 250 blocks every second. So every 4 seconds we're traveling an entire 1,000 blocks, and of course flying through the nether doesn't really require much setup, but it is a good idea if you want to use this method to lay out different trails where you like to fly to different portals, and maybe making safer ways of going through here and using this method. And just to prove how fast this method is, let's keep flying through the nether here and maybe build a portal over here wherever we've landed. And now back in the overworld, we're actually 6,000 blocks away in both the Z and X axis. We can go even faster than that though and still be in the overworld. Let's check it out. Now I didn't say this method would be safe, but this is a very easy way of going at the very slowest, at least 300 blocks a second. Now one really easy way of experiencing a TNT launcher to go this quick is to actually change your difficulty to peaceful. The one thing that is nice about this mode to temporarily be in is that it actually makes the player not be able to be hurt by TNT explosions. So we can be shot up way into the air incredibly quickly with basically any TNT launcher. Obviously, the more TNT in your launcher, the further into the sky you're gonna go. So if we turn this on and jump into the cannon right here, just full of TNT, we are going to shoot instantly to sky-high heights. In fact, all the way up here where this TNT is exploding. And as you can see, it literally took us longer to fall down than it did for us to get up there. Let's move on though to a more practical way of setting up a transportation grid in your Minecraft world. This method is the ultimate in Minecraft transportation networks. We have the Nether, we have boats, and we have blue ice. Now having a blue ice tunnel through the Nether gives us the incredible speed of 581.84 blocks a second. That means that we're going at almost 600 blocks a second by traveling through this blue ice tunnel in the Nether. In fact, you have to be careful, because if you're going too fast, you can even end up inside of walls. Now, of course, setting up a large blue ice tunnel in the Nether is difficult, but it really is worth it with the insane speeds that we can reach with this. One thing, again, with all these tunnels to be careful of is just to set them up in a safe way. Alright, so 600 blocks a second. That's basically the limit of standard travel. But we have two more methods that technically reach far greater speeds. Some of the fastest travel in Minecraft can be achieved by using TNT Ender Pearl launchers. You want to start by building an Ender Pearl stasis chamber, which is where an Ender Pearl is just floating in a bubble column. Then we're going to blast that Ender Pearl with some TNT. And if this is made correctly, an Ender Pearl TNT launcher can make you travel anywhere at a few hundred blocks a second, all the way up to 1,760,000 blocks a second, which obviously traveling at almost 2 million blocks a second is incredibly quick. And if we just keep walking this way that our Ender Pearl was launched from, eventually we're going to teleport, here we go, right over to where it hit. Now this is pretty far from our TNT launcher, I can't actually see it anywhere, and so even just here, that pearl probably traveled at least 500 blocks a second, but easily 1,000 and much faster than we did with these other methods. There's actually one incredibly rare circumstance in Minecraft in completely survival where you can go 30 million blocks a second. Now the first step is admittedly difficult. We have to fly 30 million blocks out in the end dimension. And in fact, pulling up my coordinate screen there, you can see that one of our coordinates is almost at 30 million blocks. And there are a lot of glitches in the ends generation this far out, but once you do find one of these areas that works, there are these end gateways. Every end gateway makes the player go back to the central end islands. So if we're 30 million blocks out right now, will this portal still work? Well, let's prove right now that this is technically the fastest way to travel inside of survival Minecraft by flying through here. And guess what happened? We're right here where the Ender Dragon is. We found our way all the way to 0, 0, or more or less 100, 0, which is about 30 million blocks. If you enjoyed this video about the 20 fastest ways to travel in Minecraft, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to see more content like this, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!